Welcome back to In Business. I'm David Wojcik. Has the CRA threatened you with garnishment of the receivables from your business, seizure of assets, and public humiliation? That's the kind of thing that Paul DioGuardi deals with every day, and he's here to help you. If you would like to ask a question, make a comment, or share your horror story, you can call us at 905-848-5483. That's 905-848-LIVE. Paul, before the break, we were talking about income taxes owed. Let's go on to some of the other things that we get into trouble with owing the CRA, HST, and source deductions. Do those kinds of things survive a bankruptcy or a petition, or do they can they still come after the directors for those monies? They go after
the directors, because what happens, those are trust monies, and they're treated in a special way. The deductions at source are the employee trust money. So the Canada Revenue Agency says, you stole the employee's money. HST is collected for the CRA, so they say, it's trust money for the CRA. They say, you stole our money. So even if you go through a bankruptcy, these can survive. Now, sometimes what we can do is if we can have the client pay the source deductions, then we can negotiate with the CRA that the HST may not be treated in such a way that it would be a roadblock to a bankruptcy. We can negotiate depending on the payment plan and everything, but you've got to work out a plan that puts some, I call it putting candy on the table. You've got to give the CRA some candy. In other words, if you just go in there and fold your arms and say, I'm not giving you anything, and oh, the trustee's going to take care of me, well, it may not happen, because the trustee has a duty to the creditors too, you see. So you've got to go in there and say, okay, let's say you owed $25,000 in employee source deduction and $20,000 in HST. Well, if you could pay the source deductions as part of an offer of settlement, let's say your wife would be prepared to put a mortgage on your house for $25,000 to pay the source deductions, or Uncle Louie would lend you $25,000.
Right.
But on the basis that this will be done only if you have a deal, otherwise they get nothing. Then we can sort of say, okay, we're paying the employee deductions. What can we do in the HST? Can we run that through a bankruptcy? Maybe it can be converted into a bankruptcy debt, and you discharge this man. Or he'll pay you over, or maybe we do a proposal, it's not a bankruptcy. He'll pay you over a period of time. And they will sometimes go for that.
Well, I was going to ask, what happens, because we've heard of cases where the amount of money just get ridiculous. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that's owed for source deductions and HST. When it comes to a point where now the business goes under, the individual has no means of support otherwise, I mean, does the CRA ever show any mercy at all on an individual where they say, okay, let's figure out what you can pay, or do they just say, you know, we don't care, you owe the money. If it takes you until the day you die, you know, you just keep paying us?
They want to get rid of the file. They want to close the file. Now think of the bureaucratic mind. Okay, so you've got a bunch of files, and you're bureaucrat number 25, and they say to you, okay, David, you've had this file outstanding for a long time. I want it closed. So you won't petition him into bankruptcy, but you'll put him in a position where he has to go bankrupt. So what they do is let's say it's a small business, they'll start doing seizures, RTPs of all the clients. So the guy has no cash flow coming in. They'll seize the bank accounts. They'll seize everything. They'll harass you, so that naturally the person will say, oh, well, I better go bankrupt. And he doesn't think it through when he marches in to see the trustee. Now, I'm not saying trustees don't have their place in the firmament. They do. But you have to use them properly, and you have to have the plan before you go to them, because they're not completely on your side, no matter how warm and fuzzy they may appear to you.
Yeah.
But they're good, but you have to know how to use them.
So the CRA, as you say, you've got a person that's there, they're handling the file. So they want to get it off their desk, so they're willing to negotiate something when the amount of money gets up so high?
If you can make a plan that gives them an incentive. Let's say somebody owes, there may be no way you can do it. Let's say you owe $500,000 or $1 million, and you simply don't have the assets. Well, then you've got to do what I call a fighting retreat. You know, maybe the business has to be started by another family member, and maybe you're going to be an undischarged bankrupt for a number of years because you can't get a discharge. I don't know. You have to look at each situation in its own merit.
Is there
Sometimes it's really tough.
Is there any validity? Have you ever gone in with the premise that you say to the CRA, as some people have gone to banks and said, listen, it's your fault that I'm in this position. You shouldn't have given me the money anyways. Have you ever gone in with that tack to the CRA and say, look, you should have never let me get to $500,000 or $1 million. I mean, my source deductions are $10,000 a month. It's your fault for letting me get this far.
You're absolutely right, except they won't take responsibility. The fact is they could be slack in collecting money, and they should be brought to book. Like the Auditor General continually talks about I think it's $3 billion they wrote off this year in uncollectible amounts. Now, if they had what they have in the United States, and offering compromise, where you can go in and cut the principal of the tax, even the trust tax, and say, look, I've got so much. Here's what I've got. I'm swearing under oath. That's what I've got. I can pay you 25 cents on the dollar. If this is wrong, I'll go to jail because it's a false oath. And they get the 25 cents on the dollar. They would rather ruin you and get nothing.
CRA would.
Yeah, because they're bureaucrats.
Yeah.
The bureaucrats think of their pay, their perks, and their pension. They don't care about it. They don't care about you or me. Well, why would they? You know, they're not there to be good Samaritans. They're there to collect money. But they're also not given the tools by the government to do it. The government has to say, yeah, you can do an offer in compromise. You can make a deal, and instead of having a $3 billion write-off, maybe you'll have a $2 billion write-off. Maybe they'll collect another $1 billion. But they're not doing it. So we have to work in the system that we're in, and we have to get into some really good fights with them, and we fight for our clients. So as I say, I see the man or the woman across the table from me, and I say, okay, if I'm him, how would I get out of it myself? And that's the way I go at it. And then I try to look at the cost-benefit ratio. Can we do it? Can we afford to do it? How do we cut corners so that maybe he can do some stuff himself and we do some? In other words, we find a solution. We're there we're the emergency ward. We got to fix the patients.
You're the triage.
Yeah.
Some people have suggested to me that if you owe a great amount of money to the CRA, it's easier to deal with them than if you owe a small amount. That they're mercenaries when it comes to a small amount, but if you owe them $500,000, $1 million, all of a sudden, because they're bureaucrats, they don't want that stuff to get out to the public. So they're easier to deal with. True, not true?
It works with a bank better. The banks are, the more you owe the bank, the more the banks are in your thrall. But with the government, remember, the bureaucrats, it's not money out of their pocket.
Yeah.
They don't have to you know, make it up to their superiors. The superiors say, well, you can't collect it, close the file, and boom, it's gone. It's forgotten. And then the only time it's brought up is when the Auditor General says, what the hell are you guys doing? And then what happens is it's all swept under the rug for another year, and next year there'll probably be another $2 or $3 billion written off. They never fix it. But that's not my job. I don't work for them. I'm working for the people, trying to defend the poor people that are caught in the mesh and get them out of it. That's what my job is.
How many times can you go bankrupt and get tax relief? Is there a limit to it, or you just keep running up the tax debt, going bankrupt, running up the tax debt, going bankrupt?
Well, this happens. People do it for several times. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 times. But as you get down the line, the judge is going to, when you come to get discharged, because you've got to go in front of a judge, the judge will say, well, I'm not going to give you a discharge, and the CRA will oppose the discharge. And they're, like I've seen undischarged bankrupts for 15, 20, 25 years. And the problem is, theoretically, as an undischarged bankrupt, you can't enter into a contract. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got this this pall hanging over you for the rest of your life until you're discharged.
Yeah.
Because the idea of a bankruptcy is that it's supposed to allow honest people to start their lives again, because sometimes debt is overpowering.
Yeah.
And there's a legitimate reason for a bankruptcy. But if you keep it as a game, that, oh yeah, well, I'll keep doing this, and then you get to the 4th or 5th bankruptcy and it's always tax related, you're going to get the Canada Revenue Agency in there saying to the judge, don't give him a discharge. And the judge is going to say, well, what the hell, what is this guy doing? Is it a game?
Always good to have you on the show, Paul. Thanks very much.
Here.
Come on back and see us sometime. That's all the time we have for tonight. Come back and see us next week. We will be here. We will be live Wednesday night, 7 p.m. We will be in business. You have a good night.